You know what's crazy about Bugatti? It all started with a kid who just didn't fit in anywhere. Ettore Bugatti wasn't the type to sit quietly in class and listen. School, well, it didn't really hold his attention. He learned some basics, sure, but his mind kept wandering elsewhere. Instead of taking notes, he drew gears, axles, weird little machines that didn't exist yet. People thought he was just doodling in his notebook, but he was quietly building a vision for the world. His dad was an artist, a real, serious one, and that mattered. Their home was full of talks about form, lines, perfection. Only Ettore didn't want to sculpt. He wanted machines that moved. Fast machine. And not just functional, they had to look perfect while doing it. Even as a kid, he was taking things apart. Bikes, engines, whatever he could get his hands on. Not because they were broken, but because he knew he could make them better, easier, more precise. And here's the thing that would later become the Bugatti's signature and obsession with every tiny detail. If something could be beautiful, why let it be ugly? If it could be perfect, why settle for good enough? People around him didn't always understand. Some called him stubborn, some called him a dreamer. But Ettore had this gift or curse of never knowing how to quit. When someone said you can't do that, a little light would go off in his head. That's exactly when he would start working. By his teenage years, he was already building small engines and vehicles that caught attention not because they were the most powerful, but because they were different, cleaner, more precise, almost alive with character. And quietly, without big announcements or hype, the idea that would eventually become Bugatti was being born. Not a company, not a brand. An idea that a car doesn't have to be just a means of transport. It could be a work of art that goes faster than anyone expects. And that was just the beginning. At some point, Ettore realized one thing: making machines that just work wasn't enough. He wanted people, when they saw them, to stop and stare. And that's when the real mix of art and speed began. His first cars in the early 1900s didn't look like anything else on the road. While others were building boxy, heavy machines, Ettore was thinking about lines. How the air moves around the car, how the light hits the curves. Even parts almost no one would see had to look perfect. People asked, why waste time on that? And he'd probably say, exactly for that reason. The engines weren't the biggest, they weren't the loudest, but they were precise, like a watch. Everything in its place, no excess, no improvisation. And that's how Bugatti started to earn its reputation. This isn't a car for everyone. It's for someone who gets why detail matters. What's wild is Ettore never compromised. If something didn't feel perfect, he changed it, and changed it again, even if it cost money. Because his goal wasn't to produce lots of cars. His goal was for every Bugatti to be a Bugatti. People who saw these early cars often said the same thing. This looks like it came from the future. And somehow, it did, but elegant, calm, almost aristocratic. Speed was there, always. But now it had style, attitude, and character. Quietly, without fanfare, Bugatti was stepping into the next phase. Not a question of, is it good? Anymore. But how far it could go. And then comes the moment when Bugatti is no longer just sitting in the workshop. It hits the track, racing, but not the chaotic, muddy races where only raw power counts. Bugatti enters with a completely different approach. While others chase horsepower, Ettore focused on balance, weight distribution, the feel of the car on the track. People were skeptical at first. It looks nice, but let's see what it can do when you floor it, they said. And then it happens. Bugatti cars don't just win, they dominate. Not everywhere, not all the time, but enough that the name sticks. Drivers talk about how the car stays calm even at insane speeds. It's like it's working with you, not against you. And here's the thing Ettore watches quietly. He doesn't boast. He's more concerned with what isn't perfect. If the car wins, he's already thinking about where it lost a tenth of a second. If it loses, he takes it personally. During this time, Bugatti stops being just a luxury or high-end car. It becomes a benchmark. People don't ask, is it good? Anymore. They ask, how does it compare to a Bugatti? But as always, when you're at the top, the fall is never far behind. And just when it seems like Bugatti is untouchable, the world decides to change the rules. World War I hits, and suddenly the roar of engines is replaced by silence. And then, nothing. No engines, no races, no glory, just silence. World War I, 1914-1918, swept through Europe like a bulldozer, not caring who it crushed. Factories stopped, roads emptied. Bugatti, which had been a symbol of elegance and speed, suddenly seemed irrelevant. People had bigger worries: survival, food, shelter. Who's thinking about perfect car lines now? Ettore stayed, but the world around him wasn't the same. Everything he had built over the years slowly crumbled. Races disappeared, buyers disappeared, and the name that once commanded respect was now spoken quietly, almost sadly. Factories sat empty, tools gathered dust. Cars that were once the pinnacle of technology now felt like relics of a better time. And worst of all, there was no clear path forward, no plan, just a hope that something might change. Ettore tried. He really did. He adapted, looked for new directions. But Bugatti was never a brand that took the easy road, and post-war Europe demanded practicality, affordability, and efficiency. Bugatti couldn't play that game, and then came blows that had nothing to do with business. Losses, family struggles, exhaustion, the weight of years. The vision that once burned brightly now flickered. It didn't die completely, but it no longer had the power to set the world on fire. During this time, many thought it was over. Bugatti was just a footnote in some old book, a brand people remembered with, "Do you remember when?" The name survived, the legend survived, but the factories were empty. And it's in that silence that the strangest thing about Bugatti begins. Because the stories that really matter rarely end where you expect. And just when everyone thought Bugatti was done, some people couldn't accept it. Not the former owners, not the old factory workers, but enthusiasts. Stubborn, determined people who looked at the name and saw more than a dusty legend. To them, Bugatti wasn't the past, it was unfinished business. They began trying, different attempts, some sincere, some desperate. Ideas clashed, plans were drawn on paper, but reality was harsh. Reviving a name that carried so much weight wasn't easy. Bugatti couldn't come back as just another car. If it returned, it had to be special, otherwise better not at all. And there was the problem. The world had changed. People wanted reliability, mass production, predictable results. Bugatti still demanded madness, money without guarantee, time without deadlines, perfection without compromise. Some projects started, then stalled. Some cars were announced, then disappeared before anyone ever saw them on the road. Every failed attempt brought nods from the skeptics. See? It can't work. But the name lived on, in people's minds, in stories, in old photos, in long-held dreams. And that was maybe the strangest part. Bugatti was dead on paper, but alive in the hearts of those who loved cars. And quietly, in the background, without big announcements, the next attempt was brewing. This time, a serious one. A team that didn't just want to put the badge back on a hood, they wanted to prove that Bugatti could still push the limits. And then someone appeared who had two crucial things: vision and the money to make it happen. And then came the real turning point, the big one. People who stepped in weren't thinking small. Forget modest comeback or step by step. They asked one question: if we're bringing Bugatti back, why not make something no one else could even dream of? By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Bugatti finally had serious backing, huge budgets, engineers allowed to go wild, and most importantly, a clear understanding. This isn't a project for the masses. This is a statement, a demonstration of power. The plan wasn't to build a pretty car. The plan was to build the best car possible, no matter the cost, weight, or complexity. Need 10 radiators. Put them in. Need an engine that sounds like it's breaking physics. Make it. People doubted. No way it can work. Too heavy, too expensive, too ambitious. But that's exactly where Bugatti thrives, where everyone thinks the line has already been crossed. Behind the scenes, work was quiet but tense. Not much leaked, but the little that did sounded crazy. Numbers that didn't seem real. Power that felt like a calculation mistake. A car that defied logic. And in that moment, Bugatti stopped being nostalgia. It stopped being once upon a time. It became a weapon. Not for racing, not for mass appeal, but to push the boundaries of what a car could even be. And when the result finally appeared, the world realized Bugatti hadn't come back to fit in. It came back to show everyone just how low the bar really was. And then, boom, a car appears that seems to ignore the concept of limits. People look at the specs and think it's a misprint. Power that sounds like it belongs in an airplane, not a car. Speed, well, it's not about how fast anymore. It's why does this even exist? And that's exactly the point Bugatti wanted to make. This isn't a car made to be practical. It isn't made to please everyone. It's made to show what happens when someone decides it doesn't have to make sense. Engineers solve problems no one else has ever faced. Tires that can't explode at extreme speeds. Cooling systems that operate like something from the space industry. Everything pushed to the edge of physics. And every time you think, this is as far as it can go, Bugatti adds a little more. But here's the crazy part: the car doesn't feel aggressive. Not angry, not wild. Calm, heavy, steady. Like it's saying, relax, I know exactly what I'm doing. And that's maybe the wildest part. A car that goes insanely fast, yet behaves as if it's just normal. At this point, Bugatti changes the game again. It's no longer about who's the fastest. It's about who even dares to try. Other manufacturers watch in disbelief and realize the rules have shifted again. And Bugatti doesn't stop. This car isn't the end, it's a message. A message that limits aren't meant to be respected, they're meant to be ignored. And when the dust settles, one question hangs in the air. If this is possible, what's next? And now, here we are. Bugatti, today. People still look at these cars and ask, where's the limit? And it seems there isn't one. Every new model feels like it's asking, think you can catch me, and then proving you're nowhere close. Today, Bugatti isn't just a name on a hood. It's a test of ideas, of engineering, of courage. Sitting behind the wheel isn't for the faint-hearted. These cars don't forgive mistakes, and that's exactly why everyone loves them. Every detail, every engine note, every movement, it's perfect, yet absurdly fast. Some say Bugatti isn't about racing anymore, but it always has been. Now, it's racing the limits of what's possible. The world tries to keep up, and Bugatti keeps moving, always one step ahead. And here's the craziest part. Even when it seems like everything has been pushed to the extreme, they find a way to push further. Faster, wilder, more beautiful, and again, almost unimaginable. Bugatti today isn't just a brand. It's proof that madness can be beautiful, that art and engineering can walk hand in hand, and that true passion never ages. And when you look at these cars, you can't help but think, maybe your own limits are next to be challenged.